my question mainly pertains to the level of play, and we talk about that mindset because junior hockey is from 16 to 20 years old, but there's different levels of junior. And as you mentioned, there's the EHL, EHLP, the NCDC, the USPHL Premier, the NUL. So just touch on the three major leagues, and then what you see is the difference in those players with each league.
Um, yeah, so I mean you could have a weekend long master class on the subject matter, right? Because
Yeah, Cliff Notes.
yes, we're talking about US based junior hockey now, right? Because
Yes.
there's of course U20 in Europe and across the border in Canada there's plenty of options, right? But here in the US, under the umbrella of USA Hockey, there's two brands of junior hockey. You have the USHL, which is considered tier two junior hockey, and that's a spectacular league. And if you would look at their historical statistics, there's a tremendous number of players that they're putting into Division One NCAA college scholarships, right? Tremendous. And actually, the current commissioner of the USHL is a fellow called Glenn Heffern. He comes out of New Jersey, and he does some stats on this every single year, and he does stats on the where the incoming NCAA D1 freshmen, uh, which district from USA Hockey they come from. But the USHL puts like 75% of their players into school, right? Maybe even more in a given year. And then you have the North American Hockey League, the NAHL, and their stats are a little bit lower, but it's around 30% of the league that gets Division One offers, and then most other guys that are college bound will play NCAA Division Three, and a handful will go to ACHA, mostly ACHA one, right? But again, um, that's not to be misunderstood, right? You saw UNLV just beat Denver last week, right? So
Yeah. We talked
there's
to the
some
coaches.
tremendous, yeah, some tremendous club hockey. And I know at Utah, our goal is to be, we are top 10, but our goal is to be national champion and working towards it every day, right? Working hard towards it. That's the elite level of junior hockey here in the U.S. And then you have um, on a parallel path outside of USA Hockey, you have the NCDC, which is under the USPHL umbrella, and they have tremendous players in that league as well. They have a lot of teams, and they're diverse across the United States. But then you jump down to the what colloquially is known as the Tier Three or pay to play junior hockey, and then in that group you've got two leagues under the USPHL umbrella, Premier and Elite. You have the NA3 that sits beneath the NA. One of the good things about that relationship is there's a real incentive to develop guys up the ladder of development. So players that are deserving can get affiliated and can get in the North American League in a more shorter, straighter line of a path, right? And then you go east, and then you've got the EHL and the EHLP. And historically, the EHL was a feeder to the division NCAA Division Three schools Northeast based, right? And it's the small Ivies, it's the SUNYAC schools. It's been a great for a long time. It's been a great place for those players to play their junior eligibility out and then move to college. With the recent ruling that now allows players playing major junior up in Canada to come back to go to NCAA schools, I don't think anyone has a real clear answer, a real clear vision of what it's going to look like going forward. There's a lot of rumors and there's a lot of fear mongering, but I'm not convinced the landscape's going to change that much.
No,
Right?
I think you're absolutely right. And just to listen to all the journalists that I follow, in the sport, it seems like it's very uncharted waters. Like everyone's excited about the idea, but no one kind of focuses on the musical chairs and the person that's going to be left without a seat. So
Yeah.
that leads me into my next question. Obviously, you have involvement with the University of Utah, and it's a team that has had a lot of buzz around them since I was even growing up as a kid. There was the one time where they almost stepped into Division 1, and then obviously the school got some NCAA sanctions put against them or whatever happened back in the day. I mean, this was probably when I was like 10 years old, 11 years old, anything like that. And now you look at Utah and how much it's emerging as one of those colleges, not only a destination spot for students. I mean, obviously, when you're going to the University of Utah, you're 15 miles away from Park City, or you're 15 minutes away from Solitude, Brighton, all the skiing, everything like that. You've got great entertainment, you've got everything. Recruiting seems a little bit easy, but at the same time, you guys are constantly trying to sell development. And I think Utah is going to be one of those schools like a Penn State that all of a sudden one day they wanted to throw their hat in the ring in Division 1 NCAA and they ended up getting it. Or you look at Arizona State and they wanted to throw their hat in the ring and they wanted to go Division 1 NCAA and they threw their hat in the ring and they did it, right? What's Utah's 5-year plan from here on out? But then also speak to, if you can, just kind of what you've seen as you've stepped into the program versus what you guys are doing now that has led to so much success.
Oh, well, I, I can only tell you what I know and what I've seen with my own two eyes because I think it's really inspiring stuff. Um, a very dear friend of mine, Morgan Feeney, was one of the candidates that were interviewing for the position right before the pandemic. And he got hired as the head coach. And as he was putting his staff together, I was really honored for him to ask me to be part of it. And I mean, Morgan works a tremendous, tremendous number of hours in addition to his day job, right? And like he's got a full-time job as well. Working with our existing guys, watching potential future guys, and trying to make contact and keep in contact with coaches through different junior leagues, not just locally, right? Locally for sure, but throughout the whole country and even across the border in Canada. So what I saw when I got there was the guys that we inherited were great. They were great guys. They loved hockey. They were really excited to be college athletes. Um, but they were okay, right? They were just okay as far as where they were on the competitive scale with the other teams in the division. And then over the course of the next couple of years, with all that hard work that Morgan was putting in, his dad, Rob, is part of the coaching staff. He works extremely hard as well. The recruiting classes became bigger, meaning that the potential players became bigger, and the choices became harder, right? Who are you going to pick for the team? And every year it's been improved. Every year the caliber of players that we're bringing in my view, are increasingly getting better in the sense that I have no doubt in my mind that the current team would not only be competitive, but would probably beat a good number of the NCAA Division 3 teams out there, right? And again, that's only getting better. And knowing what's in the pipeline for next year to come, like we're ranked in the top 10 now, and I have every expectation that we will be a competitor when it comes to the nationals, and hopefully for a long time to come. Now, with that type of success and the player pool growing with college eligible hockey, elite hockey players, um, I don't have clear vision on this, but I think it makes sense that there will be an expansion on the NCAA side. And I don't know what would be a better, more natural fit than the ACHA WCHL, right? That's our conference. And think about the teams, right? It's us, Arizona, Arizona State, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, UNLV, GCU, and then we play games every year against Oklahoma and UCO, both based out of the same rink in Oklahoma City. And these teams are elite, right? Like they're really, really good. I saw a social media post today that Arizona club team picked up a guy for the rest of the season out of the North American League. I think he came out of I don't remember, Rochester or Binghamton or one of the upstate New York teams, right? Like that's the caliber of players that's not just in our league, but specifically in our division. So I don't know. I mean, I think for too long we haven't been loud enough with advertising our product to the Salt Lake community. Now it's a really tough putt to try to compete with the NHL, but we've got a really really nice team that's doing big things. And just as a parenthesis to the story, our captain from last year graduated, Dylan Dix, and he's playing pro over in the English League, right, the British League right now. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that going forward, where guys are moving on and uh, having that experience we talked about, playing some minor pro, and who knows? Hopefully one day we'll put a guy in the Utah Hockey Club, and if not, maybe the Grizzlies.
For
There you go.
sure. For sure. And that was something too that like when talking with UNLV, you talked about it too, just the caliber of player that has come through the program. And you guys obviously have to start off at the beginning level, but you start recruiting, you start building up based off your coaching style and obviously your success on the ice. And talking with UNLV, like their recruiting pool has now changed. Like the players they're looking for are completely different than the players they were looking for 3, 4 years ago. So is that the same for you guys at Utah? Like what players are you now looking for versus what players you were looking at a couple years ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that the game's evolving, and so does the teams have to evolve, right? And I would say that we have a big hurdle that it's not a unique hurdle. A lot of schools have it, but we have a big hurdle with kids being academically eligible to get admitted to the school, right? The
Okay.
University of Utah is a really, really good, fine institution. It's really hard to get some guys in. So what we're looking for always is the elite athlete that's also a really intelligent person, right? And so from a coaching perspective, that makes things a little bit easier when you've got really intelligent players that now your systems can be a little bit more complicated. Your practice planning could be a little bit more focused on tactics, and it's tactical and cognitive as opposed to, oh, let's just skate down and back 50 times to get you in shape type of stuff, right? Like it's the game has evolved, and I think the type of player that we're seeing both at the U and within our division are really, really high performing and highly intelligent players, right? And that elevates the level of play. That elevates the challenges we have as recruiters, right? Because that player pool now is a lot narrower than it used to be when it was, any guy that had some decent junior numbers might be a candidate. Now we're really like not using a shotgun blast in recruiting. We're using our rifle shots to pick off the guys that we're looking for. What are
More
we looking for?
precision.
Yeah, we're looking for a right shot D. We're looking for a left shot D. We're looking for a top four guy. We're looking for a 6-7 guy. Like it gets quite a bit more focused.
No, that's great. And that's so good to hear too. I mean, obviously, like to use the metaphor, the shotgun blast to the rifle. Like, I mean, essentially, what that is doing, like we like to call them champagne problems in the business, right? Like it's one of those things that it's like now instead of taking such a wide casting net, I can focus on sharpening the tools that I have already in the toolbox instead of going and looking at new tools, right? And I think obviously when you look at your entire resume start to finish, everything that you get involved in progresses for the positive. You seem to have some type of uniqueness to programs that you're involved with that you can actually progress them with forward momentum, and I think that's the biggest key in hockey. Everyone can tell you the solutions, but very few people want to work on the problems. And just in the short time with you, I can see that you are a solutions based individual and you're willing to roll up your sleeves, lead by example, take those problems head on, and take something and leave it better than you found it. This is going to be a weird question for you, but I always love the personal touch to these kind of interviews. And I think it's what makes hockey really unique and really good and really personable are people like you. If you could wake up tomorrow and you've accomplished everything that you did today, just like you have been when you're talking to us, and someone or whoever the dictator of the world is at the time hands you a magic wand and they say, all right, George, you get to wave this thing for the state of Utah, and whatever it is that you put in motion, you can have it done at the flick of a wrist. What's the one thing that you would do to round out your resume in the context of Utah, leaving it better than you found it?
Um, I don't think that's a weird question at all. I think that's a great question, and I think the answer for me is actually pretty clear. Um, for me, if I was the king of the world and I could have my way, when I'm dearly departed from this planet, I would love to know that there's going to be a gang of players that came through my teams, my programs, that are doing exactly what I'm doing now and trying to be at the rink, trying to be role models for the players, trying to give some kids an opportunity to do what they love and do it in a place that they're safe doing it. And that's the highlight of their day and the highlight of their week, right? For me, knowing that you don't know everybody's story, and people have lots of crazy stories out there, and you never know what happens behind closed doors at home, in the car ride, wherever it is. But if I know that there's 5 kids in any given year that come to the rink and that's the best hour of their day, right? That for me, that's the reward. That's the only thing I want out of it, right? That knowing that I was able to provide that type of opportunity for somebody.
No, it is. You're right. It's a great question, Tommy. I was actually going to text you like fantastic because it leads into my final question, and George will wrap it up here. And I appreciate you taking all the time that you have. This has actually been amazing interview because it's so informational for the parents, for the kids, and then also with Utah Hockey Club. So this kind of piggybacks off Tommy's question, like if you were in charge of the Utah Hockey Club, like what's something that they can tackle right now? Like what would be the advice you'd give for them as a new franchise?
Ooh, that's tough because that's a complicated business, right? It's I think there's a lot of people that are counting on things that are way beyond my pay grade, right? Like that business is, you have the arena business, you have the marketing side of it, you have the broadcast side and what's protected, what's not, what goes on national TV, how do you work out all the TV and advertising deals, the in ice, the on boards, like that's a super complicated business. But um, if I was asked maybe a slightly different question, that what do I think the impact that Utah Hockey Club can have? I think that they're going to have a tremendous impact, right? I think that they're um, obviously there's a huge appetite to have the NHL in town. I think they're going to be trailblazers for other sports, major league sports coming to town or nearby town. And I think that for them, I know that the same ownership group has done a tremendous job in the basketball space. And the barrier to entry, of course, is way different, and it's a lot less to get a huge number of kids dribbling a ball and shooting it. Every schoolyard's got a couple of hoops, right? But I think their focus in the community should be partnering up with the existing organizations and doing whatever they can to get as many kids introduced to hockey at a cost that's not prohibitive, right?
Yeah.
And I suppose they can progress that into other things down the road. I would imagine at some point they're going to get a vest to enter have a 12U team go into the Pee Wee Quebec tournament that almost all the other NHL teams have. Like I'm sure they can do plenty of things that would be specialty stuff, but I think the big focus has got to be getting kids to fall in love with the game and getting families to fall in love with the game. Because I think from there, that's not only a fundamental building block, but I think the rest of it falls into place.
Yeah, you're spot on, and I appreciate you like just asking the question a different way because there is so many multitudes, and the reason I asked that question is because again we're here to provide education and information, and a lot of the fans don't understand how big of a actual business Ryan Smith is in right now
Yeah.
with hockey, with basketball, with entertainment, with soccer. And so it's not just the hockey team and putting that together. It's a whole operation. And so that's why I asked that question because you have a lot of experience with hockey clubs and different levels and also just being in business. So I appreciate your take on that. And also too, just how you answered the question is you talked about the presence as being there and your legacy is knowing that Utah Hockey Club has a great opportunity to tap into the youth market, and that's where I would also suggest too that they have a presence, right? Have someone from the Utah Hockey Club at the youth hockey practices, at those U8 events or something of that nature, because that's how I got started is going to a Kings game, and then the
Yeah.
Kings put on a camp, and like I said, I was playing roller hockey in the sidewalk cul-de-sac. So great
Yeah.
stuff, George. I appreciate everything, man.
Guys, I appreciate you having me. You know, if I was king of the world and Ryan Smith called me up and said, let's go have a hamburger together." I don't even know if he eats hamburgers, but I sure do. And you know, if he said to me, "Hey, look, where do you think is an easy entry point for us, in addition to the learn to play and the grassroots stuff?" I feel like the high school league here in the state of Utah doesn't get enough airtime, right? Because everybody's focused on their club teams. If there was a Utah Hockey Club sponsored high school league, and you know the playoffs and the championship game was at the Delta Center, what a dream that would be for kids playing here. Because again, depending on which high school and which division you're talking about, you may not be touching all the elite players, but you're touching all the players in the state that love hockey, that are of a certain age, and then, you know, you're playing for your school, you're playing for your town. Like, what a great experience.
100%. And uh, it's you kind of teased a future episode because I've been talking with Tom Rock. Tom Rock is the new president of the Utah High School Hockey League. It's an independent league because it's still not sanctioned by the state of Utah. But I've been talking with Tom because he's brand new, so he's been picking my brain. I'm sure he's talked to some other people too. But that's going to be a future episode or future interview is having Tom Rock, who is the commissioner president of the Utah High School Hockey League, and I agree with you 100% because that's what I told him as well. Is when I was in Colorado, the championships were played at the time. It was the Pepsi Center, now Ball Arena, but that was a huge engagement. Is having a high school game played at the NHL arena, the venue, and being able to have 10 to 12,000 kids and families watching a high school game. So I agree 100%.
No, and just to piggyback on that too, like from my own living experience, I was lucky enough to go to Murray High School. That's where I graduated. I will tell you this: I have played in front of 4,000 fans in a junior A league in the middle of Iowa in a town called Dubuque. Right? I I will tell you this: our Murray High School fans were so incredibly awesome, creating an environment. Those are the days. Like if someone came to me and said you could go back to one hockey memory, I would love to go back in front of our own home fans at Murray Ice Arena and just watch those fans get crazy. I mean, I'm not joking when I say this. We would get more fans to our hockey games than we did our football games.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, and look, you're talking a 6A school. So it's not like we're just some, you know, like a random school that, you know, just happens to have something that gets a little bit of popularity or anything like that. Like those Murray hockey games were, even when I was growing up, being a part of them now being or being fortunate enough to be a player and coming out and talking to the fans after the game, everything like that. I mean, even I can say this now because so many years have gone past. There was at one point my freshman year where we took the Brighton Bengals mascot head. Our fans did. They left it outside the locker room door at Cottonwood Ice. And some of our fans took it, and then we ended up playing Brighton to go to the state finals like 3 years later. I think it was my senior year.
Yeah.
And during the middle of the game, I look up in the middle of the game. They're tossing around the Bengal head as if it's a volleyball, going back and forth. And when I would talk to any of my friends at Murray, a lot of them didn't even know the rules. They just love the environment. So I think you're spot on there. I think there's definitely an untapped market. I think there's so much skill throughout the state that you can showcase. But not only that, what a cool place for entertainment to bring your family, bring your kids, everything like that. It's a couple bucks to get in. And before you know it, there's going to be a little kid that's up on the ice or a little girl who's up on the ice, and they're going to, you know what? I want to do that one day. So I think you're onto something there, George. That's awesome.
Yeah, coming right out of the pandemic, I was part of the coaching staff at Park City High School, and talk about a dream team of coaches. It was Jack Skilly and Colin Kleinendorst, and then myself, and we won the state championship that year. But I couldn't get over whether we were playing at home or playing in an away rink. I couldn't get over how big the fan support was, and it wasn't just moms and dads, which is what you see at club games, right? It's their classmates, it's their girlfriends or their boyfriends, because some of the teams are co-ed, and most of the teams are co-ed, and like the community came out and supported them, and like for me, I felt like this is really spectacular. Why isn't this getting more airtime? Like, what, in a little place like Park City, why isn't the local newspaper, the Park Record, writing stories every week? And then they started writing a few stories here and there, right? Like, but I think that's an area I would want to look at, because I think it's really, really dynamite.
Yeah, it is. And that'll actually, it's the funny thing, because like every interview we've done, it's almost like a part one of many other episodes, right? So I'll just leave it like this is part one, and probably I'll have to cut it up into part two. But there's definitely going to be more talk, George, because I appreciate everything, and this is why we have the podcast, is to get that information out there. You touched on it earlier, just about the social media and how fast that goes, but then also the advantage kids have of using social media to be better athletes, better hockey players. So thank you for your time, George. I know we spent over an hour, but it seemed like 20 minutes talking
Yeah.
hockey. So for everyone that was able to spend this time, thank you for watching the Southern Utah Hockey Report. We had George Chalos joining us on our podcast, and stay tuned as we'll have other times George on the show. But as he mentioned, and as I've talked about as well, just teasing a future episode with Tom Rock from the Southern, or not the Southern Utah, we're the Southern Utah, but just from the Utah High School Hockey League. So we'll be getting Tom Rock on the show. But for the Southern Utah Hockey Report, I'm Gabe Goche. Tommy Rupp, thanks for watching.
See you at the rink.